Greetings, unsettled souls. You know what that means? It's Sam Di Gangi with the correct views. Another edition going up. It's the Dunce Camp of the Month show. And for those of you that don't know, I'm sure you've noticed it's a little bit behind. Just a little bit. I had a wisdom molar taken out and it got behind basically. So I have two of them. That's four. I have two of them. I get my own cap going up. These are for the last 2 months. Of course, it would be February and March because we just started April. And have April's dunce cap until you've had all of April. I figured that all by myself. Do you see that? All right, friends, we're going to go ahead and charge right into this here. This is interesting. This was an idea I wanted to give a dunce cap to, but it happened at a time that it just wasn't going to work. But Reuters spoils Pyeongchang's Olympic flame secret. This was really funny, particularly at the time that it happened. A global news agency, Reuters, mistakenly leaked photos of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics flame being tested during the rehearsal on Sunday, and it spoiled the event's entire signature moment. Between midnight and 1 a.m. Monday, the agency wired 9 high-definition photos of the flame being lit in a cauldron-shaped scepter. The rehearsal was for the February 9th opening ceremony, but instead it was shown way ahead of time. It had been kept secret up until the last minute for years. And Reuters said, of course, it was sent in error. And that they did remove the images from the system, but of course they were viral and everywhere by then. The Pyongyang Olympic Committee warned Monday that the media outlets and reporters who don't comply with the request of non-coverage will be penalized. It was an error on behalf of Reuters, and I guarantee that wasn't an excuse that got him out of much trouble. They get dumber as we go up until the end, friends, so get ready. Alaska robbery suspect buries his coat but gets caught in the cold. Now, this was a priceless one, and I'll tell you why, as listeners are trickling in here. Do you realize that in Alaska, in the winter, it's cold? You do? Okay, well, this bonehead did not. I wrote about this for the Conservative Daily Post, but I ended up, unfortunately, calling up Yahoo's coverage of it, so it's fine. We will go with it. Police in Alaska's largest city say a man robbed a restaurant and apparently attempted to avoid being identified by authorities by burying his coat in the fresh snow. Anchorage police say Tuesday morning they received a report of a Taco Bell robbery because we all know they have tons of money. It's worth going to prison for a Taco Bell change. The suspect wore a black hooded jacket and a black towel covering his face. He claimed he had a gun, demanded money, and then, of course, ran away. As officers responded, the dispatchers took a call from a man, took the call of a man taking off outerwear and burying it in the snow a few blocks from the restaurant. Yeah, because that doesn't stand out. The clothing matched what the suspect had worn, and officers followed the tracks in the snow. A few blocks later, guess what they found? A man not dressed for 20-degree weather. The 34-year-old man was, of course, arrested on robbery charges. He didn't get the dunce cap of the month because they didn't release his name, or he might have gotten it, friends. Listen to this. Saying husband and wife violates Christian dignity, as school says, according to the campus reform. It's shared here on Prison Planet. A page of the University of Dayton's website recommends that students avoid using gendered language, including husband and wife. God forbid you say wifey. Then again, if you do, she might not be there anyway. The webpage posted under the Women's Center section of the website lists several examples of gender-specific words alongside their gender-inclusive alternatives, suggesting, for instance, that students say workforce instead of manpower and intermediary or go-between rather than middleman. In addition, the primer advocates to use the business person instead of businessman, or businesswoman, mail carrier, postal worker instead of mailman. Basically, here's what this is, friends, and I'll put this out for you real easy here. This is about destroying the culture to the point where nobody feels that they are allowed to say anything. And if you do say something, you'll be considered bigoted or closed-minded. Here's the basic here's the basic gist of it, friends. If you want to say workman, the workman showed up. If it offends you, you're free to say work woman, work transgendered seal, whatever it is that you're comfortable with. But you don't have the right to tell other people what they must say. And this has been warned about in 1984. It has been warned about in some of the most powerful works, if I can talk, extant today. And I don't think enough people respect that as they should. And I think that that is a very huge problem. Because I think as this goes on, and more often, what you find is when you control the language, you can control the entire basis of the culture. You can sort of manhandle, if you will, woman handle, where everything goes. And once you have done that, you have greatly, I think, watered down what conversations people are allowed to have, what they're allowed to say, and basically goes against everything, precepts of the country. All right, friends, going on, how about this? Dead goose falls from the sky and knocks a hunter unconscious. Nope, you can't make that up. As Yahoo decides to refresh on me here, a waterfowl hunter is in stable condition after a goose fell from the sky and knocked him unconscious. Might have said dead in my description. I'm wrong on that. Robert Mellehammer of Dorchester County was hunting with 3 other people when one of them fired at a flock of Canadian geese overhead in Easton near the Miles River on the eastern shore. Maryland Natural Resources Police spokesman Candy Thompson said a falling goose hit the man, knocking him out and causing head and facial injuries. The Washington Post reports that he came to, knew who he was, but little else, according to the resource officer. Must have been quite a goose. What was it Tiny Tim said in the one version of Scrooge? Never have I seen such a goose. I want to stroke it. Well, this was a goose big enough to stroke, although it looked like it stroked the hunter. The agency tweeted on Monday that Millhammer was in stable condition and awaiting more tests. So quite literally got blasted by the goose, which maybe it's just me. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I think there probably is. But I find stories like that to be absolutely priceless. Moving on. What's better than getting a goose in the head? How about a hunter pastor using animal collar mistaking for a coyote and fatally shot? Matthew Marsh was a 26-year-old North Carolina pastor using an animal collar while hunting. And of course, another hunter mistaked him for exactly what it was that he said he was hunting as. Now, how do you even go about this? You don't want to make fun of a pastor when they fall or when they, do something particularly stupid. But you can't help it when it gets above and beyond the point of casual stupidity. I think it's fair that even the pastor can get mentioned on the Dunce Camp of the Month award. I would hope that you guys agree with me, because that's what's happening. Here we go. A Hunter, North Carolina man was using an electronic animal collar and was fatally shot by a man with an AR-15 who said he mistook the sound for coyotes roaming near his home, police and relatives said. The 26-year-old was killed late Monday in a wooded area in Taylorsville, about 60 miles southeast of Charlottesville, as he was hunting coyotes with a 12-gauge shotgun, a rifle, and an electronic coyote call, according to the Taylorsville Times report. Marshville was served as the pastor of Russell Gap Baptist Church, who was shot several times in the chest with an AR-15 by a man who told police he heard coyotes near his tree. The man's identity was not released because he was not charged. No, he wasn't, because the pastor unfortunately brought his own demise upon himself. And I think that's one of the things a lot of people, maybe they don't realize, maybe they do. When you engage in these... When you engage in hunting, when you engage in anything like it, if protocols are all taken above and beyond the gun, people worry about the gun, forget the gun. There are other protocols to worry about when hunting, and if you ignore them, then you can end up in a situation much like this. What else do we have? How about the brilliant criminals land on police property incriminating themselves? You can tell by the byline I wrote this one. It's for the conservative Daily Post. I mentioned regular readers, of course, know about the unlucky criminals. They never endorsed a plan before in our age, security cameras or drones. But then again, criminals have Google Maps on every cell phone. Maybe 28-year-old Marwan al-Abadi and 28-year-old Sama Huria should have thought of that, but they didn't. The pair of shoplifting suspects attempted to rob a gas station in Phoenix, Arizona around 6 p.m. on Friday, according to Yahoo. They even thought out the details so well that they ran from the wall, scaled the fence to get away from officers, and landed in a secure parking lot at the police station and in custody. Posted by Peoria Police. One wonders if their prison uniforms won't come complete with dunce caps, I wrote. The duo ran beside a building and then hopped a fence, despite a sign that said Peoria Police above the door. This fact may make them two of the least prepared criminals to ever bungle a job. CCTV video shows Huria cowering under a bench as al-Badi at least had the wherewithal to hightail it over the fence. Of course, he was caught as soon as his feet touched down on the other side. The two bandits faced charges for shoplifting, trespassing in a critical public safety building, and drug charges. Everyone is left to wonder if any thought went into the crime at all before it was put into the motion. If so, how anyone, or two, could choose to rob a store so very close to the police station, I wrote, defies all logic. And they only get dumber, friends. Trust me, they only get dumber and dumber. I want to remind you that this is listener supported before we go on any further, because I think a lot of people don't know that maybe you do, maybe you don't. YouTube has destroyed the monetization of YouTube. Like the people who make videos now cannot monetize their videos because YouTube considers everything offensive. That is not liberal. It's not my opinion. It's been very well established over and over and over again. So I think those who fail to realize that will find a lot of people aren't making videos anymore because we can't turn them over to people. We can't get them seen. So it's up to you to support us. And if you want to do that, you can do it at the correct views at hotmail.com. Moving on with the dumdies here. How about this? We only have a couple of left, so we know we're getting to the end here. College student kicked out of class for telling professor there are only two genders. Well, let me tell you what's wrong with that, friends. There are, in fact, only two genders. Even if you decide to go and get your schmeckle cut off, you're just a mutilated guy. You are not a lady. It can be proven because your DNA is exactly the same. You're just a man without a schlong, that's all. Ladies, you like to get an addictomy done? I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you didn't change gender. You didn't. All you managed to do was sew a gender onto a lady and make it look like a man. This is scientifically proven. This is not my opinion. But a religious studies major was barred from Christianity class in Indiana University of Pennsylvania for saying during class that there were only two genders. The Lake Ingle, a senior at the university, said he was silenced and punished by IUP professor Allison Downey for questioning her during the February 28th Christianity 481 Self-Sin and Salvation lecture. Because, you know, some Christians don't know how to read their Bible. After showing the 15-minute TED talk, the transgender ex-pastor Paula Stone Williams discussing the reality of mansplaining, sexism from men, and male privilege, the professor asked the women in the class to share their thoughts. When no women in the class said anything because they knew that mansplaining doesn't really exist, Ingle spoke up and challenged the professor. Now let me pause for a minute. What I mean is, every time you describe something to somebody who you may think is an idiot, it's called mansplaining. Let me tell you that if I'm explaining something to an idiot that's a woman, it's going to sound the exact same way as if I'm explaining something to an idiot that is a man. Therefore, mansplaining is nothing more than a myth carried on by a PC culture that doesn't know what they're talking about. Thankfully, this student did, and he told the class that the official view of biologists is that there are only two genders. The feminist professor booted him from class and asked him not to come back, where she referred him to the public university's academic integrity board. And he needs to complete a class to graduate at the end of the semester. It says, you are barred from attending this class in accordance to classroom disruption policy. So he wrote, of course, that my professor is violating my First Amendment rights because of the fact that my views and ideology are different from hers, Engel said. So I took it upon myself to silence. She took it upon herself to silence and embarrass me, bullying me for speaking in class. Downey accused the conservative libertarian of disrespectful objection and refusal to stop talking out of turn, as well as angry outbursts in response to being required to listen to a trans speaker discuss the reality of male privilege and sexism. Well, since there is no reality of male privilege and sexism, then what was happening was that the student was being made to listen to lies. So now lies are sanctioned in a Christian college. Engel doesn't see a transgender woman rights as a wage issue, but rather as a free speech and an example of the constant misuse of intellectual power at universities. It is my firmest belief that every human being has the freedom and right to identify, dress, and represent themselves as they see fit, Engel said. I think this is all an attempt to silence my personal views because they contradict the ones that she pushes in class so evidently. Well, here's the obvious fact here, friends. He was 100% right, and she was 100% wrong. There are only two genders, and the other genders exist only in the minds and imaginations of those who refuse to accept those absolute and unalienable facts. Listen to this, friends. I got three left, and if I wanted to give the dunce cap to this individual, but I couldn't find him. Not only did he do this foul act, but his excuse really makes him stand out. Man transported to hospital after getting a squirrel stuck in his rectum. It didn't wreck him, it almost killed him. A man from Moultonborough, New Hampshire, had to be transported to the hospital this afternoon after his pet squirrel got stuck in his anal cavity. 60-year-old Ray Frankfurter maybe, called 911 himself around 3 p.m. after he found himself in a pretty uncomfortable position. Janice Monroe, the operator who took the call, says she thought it was a joke when he explained the situation. He told me he'd fallen on his pet squirrel named Slimy. Yeah, it's Slimy, and the animal was now stuck in his anus. I was convinced it was a teenager making a prank call. So again, for those of you that don't know, for the people that get into the horrible type behavior, he probably lubricated the squirrel, hence the name Slimy. And in order not to get caught, stay with me, he said he fell on the rodent. And because it's slimy, hence the name, it just happened to end up where the sun don't shine. Despite Miss Monroe's doubts, she sent the ambulance to the site, and paramedics rapidly realized the situation was in fact serious. Frank Meyer is one of the paramedics who transported Mr. Frankfurt and the squirrel. Claims the poor man was lying naked in the bathroom and a hairy red tail protruding from his anus. Yeah, it was red because it was covered in blood because he put a squirrel up his rear. He kept screaming out in pain as the animal was biting and scratching him. The guy looked like he was going through hell. Well, that's what he gets. Ray Frankfurt was transported to the Hoggings Hospital in Wolfboro, where doctors were able to extract the rodent. The retired mailman suffered from severe internal bleeding, but was finally stabilized after a 2-hour surgery. The squirrel did not survive, so he should be taken in on animal cruelty charges, in my opinion. And of course, it goes on to list other people who have been guilty of the same thing. And as frightening as it is, there's a lot of people that do it. I'm not one of them. Guilty of many deviant things, my friend, but I've managed to spare myself that joy. Friends, that brings us to the winners. The Dunce Cap of the Month Award winners. That means that in the last 2 months, these are the stupidest people that I have found. And they're going to get a Dunce Cap, and they're going to get a certificate, and you're going to get to hear what they are right here, as a matter of fact. Let me zip over to the correct. Students suspended over picture of family at gun range. Imagine if a student went on a free speech rally and posted videos of his or her speech online, then left the mind to imagine that the student was suspended from school for a full week for being proud of the First Amendment. Well, that's exactly what happened with the Second Amendment. Students were suspended for going legally to a gun range with their parents and legally posting images of it on social media. If ever a lawsuit was in order, this would be the case for it. Causing the needless suspension was a photo of 4 rifles, ammunition clips, and a gun duffel bag that was shared by students. The nation has now gone from banning guns to banning photos of as common sense becomes as rare as dinosaurs, I wrote. Lacey Township, New Jersey resident Amanda Byrne, who New Jersey says is a family friend, New Jersey Online, of course, said that the children dared to admit that they had a good time with their families, God forbid. They were safely and responsibly enjoying their time. It said, fun day at the range. Oh, the horror. Students saw the images and began to circulate them, so the children posted them. And they were booted from school for violating the school's policy on weapons. It couldn't be argued that every student who looked up or shared the images I wrote, couldn't it be argued that they were guilty of breaking the rules as well? Perhaps everyone at the Lacey Township High School deserved a 5-day vacation. So I went ahead, and friends, I'm going to show you real quick what I made for them here as the Dunce Cap that they're going to be getting. The Dunce Cap of the Month Award. This Dunce Cap award goes to Lacey Township High School for suspending students for showing that they had a good time, had good parents who teach them the value of the Second Amendment. There is no law against legally shooting with one's parents, and there should be no rule that goes counter to that logic. School rulings do not trump the Constitution, which is very clear on the matter, meaning both free speech and the Second Amendment. For failing to understand the merits of such sound practices, you win the Dunce Cap of the Month Award. Wear it well, for you most certainly deserve it. They will be sent that, friends, and then they're also going to be sent, of course, this. This is their Dunce Cap. Here, of course, it says Dunce. He wasn't a thug. There's, of course, no targets allowed. Lacey Township fools, I wrote instead of schools. No school for what? Of course, the no school sign there. And shall not be infringed is also written. That means we got one left. We have only one more Dundee, and that is the Dunce Cap of the Month Award winner for last month. That, of course, went to Senator Tom Udall, who compares Trump CNN body slam video to terrorism. Now, the reason that this offended me so much, and I thought that it absolutely was worthy of the Dunce Cap, was because there are a lot of people who have had their lives destroyed by terrorism. Let's face it, it's one of the worst things that can happen, and those who have had family members or someone touched by it are sure to be greatly offended by the fact that Udall considers the body slam video of Donald Trump making fun of CNN equal to terrorism. I thought that that was absolutely beyond the pale, so I went ahead and made it its own award. I'm going to show you the Dunce Cap first. Now this one came out much better than the last one. Last one, I don't know, I just couldn't get it in my zone here, but look at this. It's my first, let me make sure you can see this. It's my first time drawing Mr. Trump. I think I did it very well. It says, not a terrorist, of course, beside Mr. Trump. Now, they might not know what a terrorist is, so I showed them a few. F-U-C-K, CNN. Not a terrorist. Of course, you're allowed to say such things. Of course, here is a terrorist. Maybe they don't know. I know it looks a little bit like the Grim Reaper, but that would be ISIS. This is also a terrorist. Notice it's not Donald Trump. It says, mocking CNN is terrorism. Question he's asking, of course. And we of course draw up that he is a terrorist. Now, not only that, but of course he's going to be getting the award sent to him. His award looks like this. The Dunce Cap of the Month Award, it goes to Doltish, Senator Tom Udall, for implying what he very well knew to be a video of humor regarding President Donald Trump and CNN, saying it was akin to terrorism. Fake news has been a problem for a very long time, and instead of thanking Mr. Trump for exposing the truth, you have decided to condemn and smear America's rightfully elected leader. What you uttered was an insult to everyone who has suffered the ills of terrorism for failing to understand that. You win the Dunce Cap of the Month Award show. And friends, that is the Dunce Cap of the Month Award show. Let me know how you like it. Hit share, hit subscribe, and let other people know about the silly stories that are in this. Because once we can stop stupidity in our culture, or at least limit it, then maybe America can be great again. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Good night, friends. God bless.